Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Drew, Sherb, Hunter.
Oi.
Steelers are 11-0, boys. I think Hunter would be the one snoring because he probably doesn't care that much. But
what sport is that again?
But you.
What's
what
a
do you
Steeler?
What do you have to say for yourself?
I mean, our team's great. 4-12, right? Is that the record, Ted? I don't even know what the Pats are right now.
They seem to lose to bad teams and beat good teams, though, right?
Yeah, they played really well against the Seahawks. Like, they gave them a good game, and like they were pretty close. The Bills, they played a good game up until like fumbling going into the fucking end zone with like, I don't know, 10 seconds left for the chance to beat them. But, you know, it's the way it goes. I think there's a lot to say with like Cam trying to figure out what it's like to step into the shoes he had to step into.
I
with,
didn't
like, no training
actually
camp.
mean talk about the terrible Patriots.
Well, I mean,
No, I'm going to now. I still want to hear about the stupid Steelers. So I'm
Hunter,
gonna
how
talk-
the waves been?
actually great.
Yeah?
Yeah, I got.
all the narcs are
yeah,
gone, right?
actually, yeah. It was.
You got to explain like fall/winter. What the hell's going on? People are listening and like, wait,
Yeah, so
they're in Maine.
fall, yeah, East Coast, the Atlantic Ocean, the hurricane season goes like
Hurricane season was
I know.
over.
Yeah, it just ended actually. Well, it starts, I think, June 30th, either July 30th or June 30th, and runs all the way through the end of November is the official hurricane season. And it was the most active on record. I think most active on record, or it was significantly higher than average in the past. But that means swells, push waves.
How
up
cold is
through.
it though?
Right now it's in the mid 40s, like upper mid 40s.
So it's actually close to air temperature.
Yes. Yep.
Delightful.
Yeah.
What do you wear? What do you wear?
I'm in.
What are you wearing right now?
5'4". I'm in a 5'4" with the hood.
These
the
are Jimmy
gloves,
Choos.
and the boots. Yeah. For people who don't know what that means, it's the 5'4" is 5 millimeter wetsuit in like the core area, and then 4 millimeters thickness in like the extremities, and then the boots and gloves. But I went out to Scarborough Beach for the first time when it was pretty big, and it's a lot more powerful of a wave than Higgins. Higgins
Yes,
is a little bit
very different.
mushier, very different. And I got fucking worked. Like, yeah, like I have like an internal pact with myself that's like, even if it's a little bit bigger, and I haven't had that problem since for a while,
Ayo.
but like, yeah. And I was like, I will never not surf and not like get out the back, like meaning like get past the break, and like actually be in a spot to catch a wave, like, but paddling out Scarborough Beach, I didn't take enough time to like look at where it was reasonable to paddle out, and I was just like, so I just kind of tried to wait for the lull, and I just got.
Do you have to park out by the road?
Hammered.
That's like a 12-mile walk.
It's only like, I think it's only
But
like.
you don't have a
it's like
longboard,
400
right?
meters. No.
Okay.
Nothing
yeah.
like.
No, it's not cool with a longboard.
Yeah, that's fair.
That was gluten Drew as well. It's pre-CrossFit Drew. So
Pre-farmers
I
carrying
had to
Drew.
bring like a tent and a sleeping bag to walk from
Yeah.
the road all the way back in to the beach.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
I'm really sad we got off the Steelers topic because on Hunter's computer right now is the Pittsburgh Steelers schedule.
Yeah, I was gonna chime in. I was ready to chime in with one of those like.
How do you think the Bills matchup's
like
going to be?
in the scene? Yeah, it's like in the scene of A Wolf of Wall Street when he's just like, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. All nuns are lesbians. It just completely derails the conversation. That's what I was gonna try to do, but then you started talking my language.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Monday at 5 p.m. Like, they're gonna play a football game.
They're gonna play shooty hoops.
They're gonna.
Who do they play?
They're gonna do it. Washington.
Yeah, tough matchup. Sounds lucrative. Who's the quarterback for? We're gonna lose. No one's listening to this podcast anymore.
Washington?
Yeah.
This is
It's
not
still
good.
Alex Smith.
Yeah.
All right.
Break his leg again.
Alex Smith.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes. In other news, Sherb has been sitting at home and exercising in his garage, right?
Yeah. I mean, what else is there to do right now? You know, get out of the garage, exercise. Realistically, it's
got
mostly
that heater
around.
though.
The heater's nice. Don't get me wrong. Thanks, Ryan Pettit. I appreciate it. But
You got a heater in there?
yeah,
that's some news.
So I talked to Dom a while back.
gonna be
one
a
of
morning
our
chalk up
one of our
tomorrow.
members, and he's actually our
CrossFit
accountant.
Red Rum gets heater installed.
Read all about it. It was on the Portland Press Herald. makes it nice and toasty down there, but realistically, it's just, you get down to that area this time of year, and I don't even know how you're surfing because I hate being cold more than 50 degrees. So I don't, more power to you. But I wanted to work out there this winter, but it sucks to get started. Once you get going, you don't care. It's just the first few minutes. You're like, boy, it'd be much nicer to be sitting on my living room couch right now watching TV, not exercising. So
to be fair, it's no different than somebody who's going snowboarding. It's I can't believe you're snowboarding. It's 18 degrees out. It's well, first of all, that's when it's best. And second of all, I'm just wearing all the appropriate equipment.
The water's scary.
You also have to work your ass off to get, if the waves are good, you're typically working pretty hard.
Sure, yeah.
If you went out there and you were getting splashed in the face and there was no waves, you'd probably start to get a little cold,
right?
Pissed off.
Yeah, it would be more pissed off.
So you're working so hard that it doesn't really matter. It's kind of like chopping firewood. You're out in the woods.
Yeah, I mean, there is the degree of you're moving around a lot more because there are more waves and whatnot. But it's also you just wear the appropriate equipment. And I could sit out there for 3 hours and my feet will get numb by the end of it. But it's
not that bad.
It's just wearing the right equipment. I think it's more the unknown. People are less comfortable with the ocean and water in general.
Would agree with that.
Just an open body of water.
Yeah, speaking of that, Hunter took Cody and I surfing in Southern California, and the waves were huge, first of all. Second of all, you paddle in, and then you're immediately a half a mile down the beach, away from the car.
To me the other day too.
The current was insane. Is that the right term?
Yep.
Okay. The current was insane. I should know. I grew up on the ocean, but it was bonkers. And it was Hunter was super into surfing, but he had just gotten into it. But I can confirm that he will make his way to where he needs to be, because he literally, I watched him multiple times at the top of what felt like a 10-foot wave fall off the top of the 10-foot wave, and he's just I'm in, let's go, keep doing it.
When you fall, do you fall to the side the wave is going to crash on, or do you fall off the back side of the wave? I don't know shit about surfing.
You don't get to choose.
You get
wherever you go. The ocean decides.
You go with the white water, and you just get.
This particular one though was more he was on top of the wave a little too much and just fall all the way down, which looked terrifying. I don't know if it actually was terrifying.
That's fun. That's a good time.
Yeah.
But actually, this past week was the first time in a while that I would start to paddle into a wave. And just because that wave, it just kind of sucks out from underneath you because it's faster and it just stands up steeper. All of a sudden, just the floor disappears from under you. And I'm we'll go for the next one.
But were you pitted?
I didn't.
That's the only surfing video I know.
You did great.
I don't know shit about it.
Nice job.
And today's topic
and the following
is,
week, the Steelers have a bye.
Yes. All right. We're going to talk about something we've talked about before, and it is so important right now in the world that I think we can take it in a bunch of different directions, and that is the buddy system. Just the idea that as human beings going it alone, whether we're talking about isolation and coronavirus, training partners, someone that you text about, I did 10K C2 bike today, someone that you talk to about your diet, or we got to make plans to go outside, whatever it is. The buddy system itself, the idea that we have a biological reward system built in, that we feel better, we do better, we execute, we're motivated when we are around people, especially people that we like, I feel is such a timely topic. It's important all the time. It's important year round, but we're in such a weird time right now that it honestly could apply to anyone who listened to this episode.
I'm not sure I would ever recognize this or realize this in myself until this actual lockdown that we had. But one of the things I explained to my wife when people were coming over to our house, in the spring trying to work out in my garage, was that it's as much about getting them healthy and having them stay engaged as it is me, because without them coming over to my house to exercise, I'm probably not going to go downstairs. I mean, we talked about it some days. You sat at your kitchen table and you worked from the sun came up until the sun went down. And, in the spring, that's 12, 14 hours of just sitting on a computer screen the entire day. So for me, that was, we were thrown into this uncomfortable situation, but I never would have known how much that mattered to me if it weren't for this situation, because typically always been on someone who played sports and been around other people, and just happened because my activities were team sports that I never realized how much I needed other people to be around to be happy and to feel like a normal person until this happened. And we're like, all right, everyone go home and work from your office in your kitchen. And I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to do with this. And then starting inviting people over to figure out how much of that was, how much tribe actually mattered to me. And it really did matter.
Right. And I think there are a lot of people listening to this that may be a little bit more like you in terms of being extroverted in that way, that when the pandemic happened, they were just, it was their default setting to go find someone to work out with. It was their default setting to be like, shit, I actually really need to start being that person that posts all my workouts on my story or send it to someone, so that there is this level of accountability, because like whether people know it or not, that's the secret sauce behind CrossFit. Like I do love the fact that like we sort of have figured out how energy systems work in a more detailed way and how they kind of go together and what that ecosystem is. But it just would have been another niche, like flash in the pan type thing, like any other workout program that we heard about growing up that was the latest craze, without the fact that people did it together and raced each other and learned the movements together and all that. Like,
yeah, I think my immediate thought was actually just from this morning that I went out and I took class. And I, for various reasons, will do that as often as I can at the gym. But today was one of those days where I was like, I'm sure I could find time in the middle of the day, or maybe I could take a later class. But I'm sure everybody understands the idea. Like the later you keep pushing something off, the less likely you are to do it. So I jumped into class and I wasn't super stoked about it. And my knees have been acting up a little bit. I didn't want to do thrusters. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, sweet. Like Julie's in class. Oh, cool. Lydia's coming like in class. Oh, there's Donnie. I haven't seen Donnie in a little while. And then it became more fun. I didn't give a shit about how I did in the workout, but it was immediately just like, oh, I forgot. Sometimes I forget like that I enjoy going into class just to hang around and have that social interaction. And even if there's not a significant social aspect to it, it's still for me, more so for me because of my more kind of introverted nature. I don't need to be interacting with people, but I do enjoy being around people, which I think is an important distinction. So that was my kind of immediate thought.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily to say that the other side has it completely figured out, and then if you're introverted now
coaching,
that you're kind of like screwed. It's just one of those things where you have to realize that even if you're listening to this and you're like, oh no, I'm happy as a clam in isolation and I'm doing this or whatever, like there are a lot of things that are probably happening to you on a more biological level that you're just not necessarily connecting to the fact that you're alone. Like, oh no, I'm fine being at home, just watching TV, just doing my thing in that way. But it takes a good, hard, long look at everything, the big picture, everything that's going on in your life. How are your moods? How has your diet been? Can you convince yourself to exercise and do all of these things? And the more people are alone, the more they start to believe their own narrative that this is just what I want.
To me, it's the analogy that in my mind was like someone who smokes, like to begin with. Like when you first pick up the habit, you smoke, whatever, a pack a day or a pack a week, whatever your habit is. Early on, you don't really notice the fact that it's fucking literally killing you. You're just like, this is what I do. This is what I do. I'm fine with being alone. I'm fine smoking these cigarettes until the one day that it's not okay anymore because you put up. Essentially, it's one of those things where the behavior and the micro doesn't necessarily, think about it from a macro perspective. Like down the road, this could give me cancer or kill me off before I'm ready to die. It's in the same way that being isolated early on doesn't really feel like all that much. Like, hey, it's okay to be alone. But then when that occurs over and over again for an extended period of time, you notice you're more irritable. You don't sleep as well. You make bad diet choices. You don't go out and exercise.
Right.
Like, it's really easy to have those things like in the short term, not realize they matter all that much until it's, oh shit, now it might be too late. And now what do we do? So like, why not stop early on and try to change the behavior so that it doesn't, affect you the way it eventually could.
Right. And those, you got to think about all of this. Like we do the Misfit project, we've got our tribes and our stress and our sleep. When you are in a room indoors you go from mini screen to medium screen to medium screen to giant screen. Like you're in this rotation of like there was a meme recently that was really funny. It was like, I took a break from my medium sized screen to look at my small screen. And then my reward at the end of the week was looking at the giant screen. And when you are within that and your body's not producing the things that it should, you get really confused. We have too much history and too much evolution with all of those things just naturally happening for us. We lived outside, we lived with other people so that we didn't die. Like we got sunlight, we had to move around because you had to go get your food and you had to be, a meaningful member of your tribe. That is like essentially all of human history, right? So when we are in that room doing nothing, deciding not to work out, deciding not to make the right food choices, whatever it is, it's like our bodies don't understand that at all. It doesn't make any sense. So like you need to be able to have those things happen to realize their value. And they have to actually happen too. It can't be, oh, I know that if I did this, I would feel better. You have to go through the thing. Like you walked through a gauntlet essentially. Like you were like here last night, maybe you were like burnt out or whatever it was. And then that you had over 100 thrusters to do. But you had to go through that gauntlet to get the feeling that was on the other side to reward yourself. And I think that's what's missing for so many people is it's like, yeah, but I can be lazy right now. Like this is the easy choice to make, but it's actually the harder choice to make because you're going to feel shitty continuously.
I think when people have a barrier like, a stay-at-home order or, shit's just weird right now, the coronavirus, you don't feel comfortable going out there. People say because I can't do my traditional way of consuming that behavior or habit, like going in person and hanging out at somebody's house or going out to a restaurant and eating and just go, well, I can't do the only way I know how, so fuck it, I might as well not do it at all, instead of trying to find ways to connect. And like I thought was really cool at our gyms is that there were people who were literally asking, hey, can I borrow your Zoom link so we could do like we did horse racing with dice rolling at, Jen and Ted set up one night at their house. And then there was one night we did trivia pursuit at like the Wyndham gym. Like we were able to find new ways to create that connection because everybody was craving it and they couldn't have their traditional like interaction. So what do? We have to find a way to adapt. And what's great about human beings is we're resilient. We try to find, when we start to know things are going off the right path, we try to find a way to go back onto that right path. So for me, like, it's kind of a curse that we have all these screens because it can make it really easy to isolate. But those same screens, if used as an appropriate tool, like the tool they are, can actually open your ability to go connect in ways that you've never been able to connect before. Like I can see buddies that live on the West Coast in an instant. I don't have to buy a plane ticket. I don't have to drive across the country. I can literally see them in an instant. But because I'm not doing it face to face, that I might be adverse to doing it. And what I'm saying is use these tools to your advantage and find ways to have that connection, because what's great about the time that we live in is that we can have that connection in an instant with almost anybody.
Right.
What you said that kind of resonated with me is I do have that kind of all or nothing sort of mentality when it comes to things like that, when it's maybe it's exercise related or something like that. If I don't have like a workout that I know I'm going to do, I'm way more likely to just do nothing. What was I can't remember what your example was, but if you don't have that accountability from somebody, or instead of just the behaviors that you said that I would normally do, but I'm unable to do right now, instead of making kind of the best of a bad situation, I'm going to just choose to do nothing. And I think that sort of mindset can really put somebody, it's super degrading. It's super difficult to get over. And I just say that because I have that kind of idea. If it's not perfect, or if it's not exactly how I want it, then I'm just going to abandon it altogether or not execute on it at all.
I've had the same issue with, things aren't a perfect scenario and fuck it, I'm not going to do it then. But like, then you have like a kid and you realize that sometimes there's a 20-minute nap window. You're going to sneak fucking 10 sets of 10 push-ups in, and that's all you're going to get for the entire day. And honestly, there's a little bit of freedom in knowing that, like, at least you did something. At least you went out there and tried. Like, I think so many people are like paralysis by analysis. Like, I can't execute the entire blog, 17 steps, and try to work out. So fuck, I might as well not work out. It's like, you would still have some benefit if you went downstairs and knocked out a 10-minute AMRAP of push-ups and lunges, and you'd get a workout done and feel good. And at the end of that, you would not say, oh man, you know, it was a bad decision to go downstairs and try to move around. And I think that's that little like spark of initiative is what most people are missing when things get, you know, a wrench gets thrown in that plan. And you have to give yourself permission to say, all right, well, yeah, there was a small wrench in my plan, but that doesn't mean I can't come up with another plan. And one of the things we talk about with just being healthy and being being a good person, being resilient, like have the ability to take ownership over that and go, you know what, I could say, you know what, I can't do the muscle up piece on the blog or my workout because I don't have rings hanging up in my garage or in my basement. Well, won't I still benefit from doing some push-ups and some air squats? Like, the answer is yes. But again, because it's so, you know, not your original plan, it becomes, oh, I can't do this.
Well, one of the benefits of the quarantine has been a bit more time to do the things, maybe the things that we talk about within the Misfit project that if you tried to think about them all at once, they could kind of stack up on you. And for me, that's a little bit more, you know, taking a meditation course, journaling a little bit more. And that's led me to just sort of this overarching idea that control, like on the macro level, is an illusion. Like, we don't have control over a whole lot. The world and life and all these things are fairly chaotic. And when you learn to apply that down to the things that you guys are talking about, life gets way easier. It gets so much easier. I want to control this exact detail. And like, we joke about it because, you know, we're 4 males in the same kind of demographic, pretty close in age. And like 21-year-old males, not the like sharpest tool in the shed typically.
Bullshit.
Fuck you. Can you tell who the youngest person in the room is?
Tarps off, boys.
He just takes his shirt off. You want some of this? So when you realize those things, and I can bring it back to every single piece, is like when I was first really taking a deep dive into sleep, I would throw a fit if the conditions weren't exactly how I wanted them to be, which obviously chilling the fuck out would be step one when you're talking about sleep. When we think about what shoes you wear, people get obsessed over, they throw a fit when their grips, someone stole their grips, or they don't have the right wristbands, or the shoes aren't correct. When you have that mindset, when you think that you can control, again, the chaos, like, you're screwed. You're already kind of done for. And what's awesome about this is when you let go, then you let something like class or air squats and push-ups or whatever it is grease the runway to then open up all the possibilities. Because once you actually go through any of the gauntlet, you can choose whichever gauntlet you want. When you come out the other side, those chemicals have been produced in your brain. You do feel better. You are now willing once again to take that step with another category again. But if you're in the, you know, if you've dug yourself a hole and you jumped in and you haven't, you know, decided to at least climb out and look around, you're going to stay down in there. There's not really going to be any way. And this couldn't be more true right now. I mean, how much time, and we're going into winter, and winter definitely means something when it comes to health and well-being where we are from. You know, we're from the kind of place where there's a 2-month stretch where it's going to be anywhere from -10 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit every day. And like, it's
delightful.
And if you go to downtown, yes, if you go to downtown Portland and you get that sea breeze on your face, it cuts through your soul like you would not believe.
Fuck, got a second belly button down there.
Goodness gracious.
Right.
This is a children's show.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, boy. All right, Misfits, just a quick break for our show sponsors, Pure Spectrum CBD. You can head to purespectrumcbd.com and use the code word MISFIT to save. I talk about it quite a bit because it's really important to me. CBD is both neuroprotective, as in you're protecting your brain for anything that's going to happen while you're taking it. Or after you're taking it, obviously, but it's also neuroregenerative. I have had a ton of serious head trauma in my life. Not a great thing to think about when you think about later in life and Alzheimer's and all that scary stuff. So knowing that there is a product, I use the Black Label 2,500 milligram daily tincture, knowing that there's a product that's going to help regenerate some of the stuff that's been damaged is really important to me. Again, purespectrumcbd.com. Use the code word MISFIT.
We're also brought to you by Proper Fuel. Head to properfuel.co for your post-workout nutrition needs. Proper Recovery is our flagship product. If you're like, us three on this table right here, you have a lot of things going on in your life, and like trying to cook a perfect like 3-course meal at the end of your training day or end of a long work day.
Easy day.
Isn't the easiest thing. So why not go to your one-stop shop for all of your post-workout or post-work needs? It's got carbs, it's got protein, it's got fenugreek extract, digestive enzymes, pink salt. It's got it all. Again, head to properfuel.co for your post-life needs.
Whoa, post-life.
Yeah.
Nice. We are, last but not least, brought to you by sharpentheaxecode.com. Head to sharpentheaxecode.com. You savages cleaned us out pretty good. I know that because I spent at least a handful of hours on Thanksgiving weekend.
Just a handful.
Packing, shipping orders. But there's still plenty of stuff left because we didn't want to like run out like we have in the past, right?
Like every other year.
Yeah, like every other year. But also, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm very, very excited about this hoodie. The old tie-dye.
We finally made the product Hunter's been begging for 6 years.
Well, I think to give Sherb credit where credit's due, it was, I think, what you said it was an idea a while ago, right?
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
And I was like, after we made the tie-dye t-shirts, I was like, we're going to sell a zillion if you make the oversized tie-dye hoodies.
Zillions and zillions and zillions.
Billions and billions of tie-dye hoodies. So that's what we got. That drop is coming up later in December. But as always, head to sharpentheaxecode.com. Use the code word unprepared to save a few bones, or use the code Kiala to get 10% of your order donated to the Kiala Foundation. And now, back to the episode.
One other thing that I was going to talk about.
It gets cold, all right?
It does get cold. I can't even continue my train of thought now. I'm visualizing.
Ted, this is where we ad break.
There's a blog and newsletter that I really like called Farnham Street, and they have a podcast called The Knowledge Project. And John Maxwell, who is a world-renowned leadership specialist, was on the podcast, and they had a conversation about, and this goes all the way back to one of Sherb's first points. That's why I was searching for the note, but they have this. They talked about this concept that wanting to be happy is kind of not enough. Like, how do you actually become happy? Would you want to be happy all of the time? Then would that not show you, like, are you even happy then? Because there's no comparison.
Hunter, what it's like to be happy none of the time? I'm just curious. What's that like?
So when you are happy, it's a big surprise.
Sorry.
But that's interesting. That could be like a mind fuck of a thought experiment. Because
right.
that's like the, if you had $1 million, would you be happy? It's like, well,
right.
do I snap my fingers and I'm happy, or is it a gradual progression,
right,
where you actually just are constantly looking for like, oh, if only I had this, if only I did that, if only I had the time to do this, or if only I could afford that sort of thing. Like, when does that stop?
But it fits this conversation perfectly, because the idea, and it all sounds perfect to us, right? If I was Jeff Bezos, I would sell my $140 billion, whatever it is, worth of stock, and just fuck off for the rest of my life.
Yep.
Guess what happens when you fuck off? You shut off all of those things that I was just talking about. The idea, we are supposed to work. We are supposed to help others. We're supposed to go outside. We're supposed to do all of these things that we're currently doing. And obviously, there are certain versions of it. I mean, you've got people here where, we're entrepreneurs. We know that, we could potentially be making more money in a different sector, but like, do we want that kind of a thing? So there is a spectrum when it comes to that. But the idea that we would just do nothing, guess what? You're getting served that up on a platter right now. How awesome is it?
Yeah.
It's not that awesome.
Blows.
Like I think people want things maybe to slow down a little bit more and not be as stressed out. I think that's probably a little bit closer to the truth than the idea that I want everything to stop. Like, are you still alive? Like, are you still a human being? Do you still have any relationships? Like, all those people that you got to talk to every day at work now, are you really going to seek them out and recreate all these relationships? So I think it fits in the ecosystem. But where John Maxwell goes with this conversation is, he thinks that people should try to live a life of significance over a life of happiness, because he doesn't know anyone that is unhappy that lives a life of significance. And he measures that by providing value and helping others. He's like, listen, it sounds like he's explaining somewhat like Mother Teresa or something, but in actuality, isn't it kind of selfish if what gets you from not being a very happy person to being a happy person helping other people. Like, of course it's a win-win situation, but the idea that like you need to immediately be a saint to be happy, I think doesn't necessarily completely match the idea, because you're doing something for yourself.
Yeah, it's the
by
same.
doing something
it's
for
the
others.
idea like, oh, I like Christmas because I like to get somebody else a gift. You don't like getting them a gift. You like the feeling that you get when they open it and they're surprised and they're excited and they're
Right.
grateful that you got it for them or that you put some thought into it. That sort of idea. Is he the religious guy? Is he religious? Does he have like a lot of religious?
I don't
stuff
think
in
so.
Okay, I'm thinking of a different.
Well, this is
different
funny while you were talking about like happiness versus significance. All I could think about was like all of the good things that have happened over the last 9 months, because as much as this year's kind of sucked, and it has sucked, there have been a lot of good things that we've learned as people, as, you know, friends, as a business, that we can take forward into this situation. And like, you know, you and I had a conversation once about like how we took like the first 6 months of quarantine, and it's like 10 years of lessons smushed into 6 months. Like, think about how valuable that is, and how so many people aren't just gonna like brush it off. It happened. It went by me, and not like take that information that you learned and use it going forward. So like, just going back to significance and like helping people, like when the gym shut down and we couldn't have people inside the space, like I sought out people to come work with me, because I know that they were missing that part of their life. And as I was missing that connection. And yes, were we limited what we could and could not do? Of course. But the fact that we were able to come together in a really small group, the same kind of people over and over again. So again, trying to be as smart and as safe as we could, we were able to create this, you know, this interaction and this feeling that we couldn't otherwise have. And for us, it was kind of interesting to see like, all right, well, now we're a programming company that thrives on someone like being able to go to a gym and do whatever they want inside of a CrossFit space. Like, how do we pivot and make something that's still as engaging, still as effective when you have 2 tools or 3 tools? And to me, I think that is the significance of what occurred, and how we can kind of focus on that, how that's going to help us grow as people, because that is something that can be missed by so many different people. Just that came and went and didn't learn from it. So to me, like, latch onto those things, try to find the silver lining in things, because you're going to be a happier person.
Yeah. And what's important here is the idea that I don't think there are a lot of people that are, you know, have had a tough life and are not necessarily going to open themselves up to this naturally. But to anyone out there who sort of feels like they're in that category, I think the idea is recognizing it when it does happen, because everyone over the course of a certain period of time is going to get those reminders. They're going to have a good interaction with people. They are just, you know, they might end up at a restaurant that doesn't have something unhealthy that they, you know, like. So they order, you know, meat and vegetables and potatoes or something like that. And then they're like, oh, wow, I didn't feel like hungover from, you know, whatever, a bag of cookies in the morning, that kind of thing.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So
I had 2 cases of food poisoning.
like the idea of, if you're not going to seek this stuff out because life has sort of been that way to you so far, I think the idea is recognition of it when it does happen, because I think that could lead you down the right path to try and go out there and figure shit out. Because the world is, I mean, we talked about the chaos already. Like, the world can be a tough place for people in certain situations. And the idea that it's easier for us to just sit here and say, do this, do that, you know, whatever. It's not always going to be completely realistic. Like, we grew up in Scarborough, Maine / Wyndham. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where providing perspective and just letting people know, like, I think these things are probably already happening to you. You just have to be willing to like look at it that way.
Yeah, take a step back and look at the picture from a macro perspective, instead of like, hey, right now sucks. Like, what can I gain from this? What did I learn from being stuck at home? I found ways to entertain myself in a boring situation, or I found ways to connect with people I never previously connected with. Like, you know, at one point, I literally just sent out a bunch of text messages to people I hadn't talked to in a while, and just say, hey, how's it going? Like, and you know, getting that interaction and having those conversations, I probably wouldn't have done that if it weren't for some sort of impetus like being stuck at home. So like taking ownership and saying, you know what, I'm not feeling all that great. Why not think of something that I could do right now that's super low barrier to entry that make me feel better? And then that one behavior begets another behavior, begets another behavior. And
Right.
before we know it, we have that like snowball effect rolling down the hill because we did one small thing to do something that's healthy for us. And I think, again, it becomes this idea of like, I have to do these 17 things to be a happy person. It's like, I did one thing that was significant and it helps me. That leads to 2 things, leads to 4 things, leads to 10 things kind of deal.
Yeah, the recognition and understanding of what things kind of make you happy. I was trying to think of a better way to phrase that, but if you were somebody who, you know, come isolation, you realize like you have to think, what are the things that I am now missing that I had before? Because for a lot of people, I'll use myself, I guess, as an example, like, oh, I have more time now to do the things that I said I was going to if I had more time to do them.
Right.
But that came at the expense of not seeing people, not being able to work out at the gym or coach and interact with people. And because those things were taken for granted and at least partially things that I had to do, like I have to coach Monday at 6:30 p.m. and Tuesday at 5 and 6:30. Like I have to do those things, but it turns out that it's more like kind of I got to do those things and I got to interact with those people and yes, I was on the clock, I was coaching, I was mentally engaged, but recognizing those, and there's a lot to unpack just in that one kind of idea. Is it
Right.
like, was it the human interaction? Was it the physical moving around, like literally walking around the gym in a bunch of circles, collecting steps? Was it having the conversation with somebody about nothing that was related to the workout at all? That sort of thing. Like what?
And the answer is yes, though, right? 'Cause
Correct,
It's this,
right,
It's
yeah.
this ecosystem of these things lead into each other.
Sure.
And like, I'm always trying to, while you guys are talking, I'm trying to think of like, what are the different perspectives of people listening to this? And there's probably someone out there. There's like these fucking hippies. This
Yeah.
guy with his fucking beanie and his long hair. This guy's got a triple XL hoodie on. This guy's got a tie-dye hoodie on. That lettuce is
good.
flowing
Oh, I
all
thought
over
you
the
were talking-
place. That's why we love the gym as a metaphor so much. There's a pretty good chance you either take class or coach class. There's a pretty good chance that you've had one of those long strings where you train by yourself and things are getting stale. Like you can understand exactly what we're talking about today if we just go on a tangent about training partners, right? What is it like to do this completely on your own? And then I don't know what he's laughing at me over there. I can't tell what's going on.
I'm laughing at his lettuce.
So like, what's it like to train by yourself? What's it like to follow MFT and train by yourself day in and day out? Versus what's
Got
it
it.
like?
Will do.
How could it possibly be easier or get you a better score because I'm sitting on a bike next to you? How the fuck is that possible? That doesn't make any sense from a scientific standpoint. Well, actually it does, right?
Yeah.
Like if you feel better, if you feel more confident, if your, blood pressure is in a different place and your heart rate's in a different place, all of those things are going to go together. And that's going to create, again, another reminder of like, yeah, well, maybe I am not so much of a social person, but it does suck to go out there and do, Winnie the Flu by yourself while Ted's filming and Drew's laughing at you.
Truth. I can confirm that
Yeah,
does suck.
I mean, we when we recently just had to have people start wearing masks at the gym, which we didn't initially. There was a little bit of the concern, I think, because we had had to go through shutting down and then reopening, and fortunately everybody in our community did realize, like, holy shit, like I need to be at this place as often as I can. And then we put the mask mandate out, and there is certainly a level of like concern. It's like, oh, are people not going to want to exercise with a physical mask on? Or is it more symbolic of this is getting worse before it gets better, so I'm going to cancel my membership or something like that? And literally the only comment on the post we made about masks was by Ariana, who was like, basically was like, I'll wear a fucking paper bag over my head as long as it means I can still come to the gym, and work out. So and pretty much everybody has taken on that kind of mindset, but it was a stark reminder that people don't necessarily, you didn't say I'll wear whatever I have to get the programming. You didn't say I'll wear whatever I have to get like the STA gear at the front of the gym. It was I'll do whatever I have to come into the gym to be able to interact with the people that I'm used to at the time that I like to come in.
It's funny that you say that, because what I think about is like, you think about a gym and why someone would want to go to one. And for most people, it's like, I want to create some sort of self-improvement. Like, I need to lose weight. I want to get ready for the beach, go ready for my trip. And, you know, for the longest time, I've talked about this on the coaches podcast, like, you think about people are coming in there because you're an expert on thrusters. They don't come off the street looking to get better at thrusters. You know, they don't come in there because that you think that you have the shiniest equipment. Like, that might help get them in the door on day one, but what brings them back is the community around the facility and the interaction that they had on a day-to-day basis. And that to me is the real power behind our model of gym versus any other style of gym, is that like power of being around other people and having that interaction matters to more people than what the workout is or how it made them feel, or like, you know, the fact that their day was tough. Like, they want to come in here and just interact with somebody else. And that to me is like what is so cool about the style of gym that we have, is it just kind of breaks the mold down from what gyms used to be. I mean, if you look at any of those old like pumping iron videos, those dudes are like buddying up because they needed to have an interaction with somebody. Most of them are not working out alone, but at the same time, the ones that are like with one person or by themselves, and like that doesn't lead to long-term adherence. You look at those guys, they come in, they get whatever their Olympic title, and they fucking leave, and they don't want to go to the gym anymore because they don't have that interaction. Whereas, you know, here's the story of like CrossFit is like teaching people how to commit to things. And like, there are little things about a CrossFit gym that kind of entices someone to come back. And a big part of that is this social interaction. It's like a big adult gym class. And, you know, early on it was annoying to me. It's like, oh, like you pipe down over there, I'm trying to teach thrusters. And it's like, no, I should like celebrate that, because those people are saying like how awesome this place is and how they can't wait to come back and be with that friend again at your gym. So like, there's a lot of power there. And it did take a really long time for me to acknowledge that. But like, that to me now is like, you know, foster that in your community, foster that around people. If you can be the impetus for people to kind of get together and find and interact, like do that, because we're all struggling right now and we're all think that we're alone in this, you know, but we're not. Everyone feels the same way you do. It just needs someone to break out of the mold and say, I'm going to stand up and get these people together.
Right. I think I've talked about it before on one of the podcasts. It was definitely one of the things that really like kicked me in the ass to start doing some of the Misfit Project episodes. That's a book by Sebastian Junger called Tribe. And the concept behind the book is that the like happiest moments in people's lives are when tragedy strikes and then the community bands together. And he's, you know, he wrote like Perfect Storm and obviously probably sold that for a decent chunk of change to, I don't know, Mark Wahlberg.
Miramax.
And he lives in, like, he personally lives in what he would consider like a low to like middle end area, income wise in New York City, for the exact reason, because he interacts with people from all different communities, and he's in the type of building where like you would need to know the person to be like, hey, if you could stop like hanging up photos, like nailing stuff into the wall at 2 a.m. or whatever it is. He just talks about how, because the immigrant mentality a lot of times is more community-based, is more family-centric, that he puts himself into that, even if it's outside of his comfort zone, because then you reap the benefits of truly being part of a community. He talked about America coming together post 9/11. He talked about the, I think he talked about the Korengal Valley quite a bit.
That's what the whole book is based on.
The most terrifying, essentially, like modern day war, like camp, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, it was like, he basically was embedded with an army unit in the Korengal Valley in Afghanistan, which was at the time the most dangerous place on earth, and referenced just these guys. And there was one story where it was I'm pretty sure he got shot like in the head, like in the helmet, and like they thought he was dead, and like the kids sat up like 20 minutes later and they're like, holy shit, like Rick's alive. Like didn't, like, obviously nothing bad, but by the middle or end of the book, he was talking about how they like they got the like they slept the best
Right.
like they ever have when they're like hanging out with the dudes, you know, at the impending thought of getting mortared. Like, but these men are like bonding, and
he was terrified the whole time, and he missed it when he left.
Yeah, experiencing and that's a super common thing in like the military, but it's not the military itself. It's that shared, that communal, that tribal sense
right.
of kind of belonging.
Yeah, and I think that example's good. And then he basically goes throughout human history and just talks about these different examples of how if the tragedy happens and it forces people to be together, that you then end up having the most meaningful times in your life. So to me, the connection and the nod is to like, we are going through this right now, but if people do use the buddy system and actually think about how to remain connected with other people, like the gym example is what made me think of this. Like the Hunter's narrative in front of class was like, you guys are the most resilient people in the world. You've already chosen to walk through these doors. We're going to add a layer, a literal physical layer of adversity in front of your face. You're going to breathe a little heavier. Guess what? You fucking signed up to breathe heavy, and we have a new assault bike, and it's called Mask. Like, it's here. You've already chosen this. And like, that there's a sense in the room. You can feel the energy of people being like, we're all buying in. We're all going to do this. This is not an ideal situation. And yet you see people leave happier than they would have in 2018 on the sunniest day, you know, that we had during the summer or whatever it is.
The nice part is that it doesn't take, like, you don't need 100% buy-in. You need like 5% buy-in from people, and then it becomes 10%. And then they're just like, oh, like, well, I'm not fucking leaving if he's not leaving. I'm leaving. I'm not leaving. Like, oh, all right, fine. Like, I'll stick around for engine class too. And all of a sudden, like, it just spreads like this massive web.
Yeah, I mean, this is supposed to be, that's a good point. This is supposed to be subconscious. We're not supposed to be in such a situation that we have to tell you what your DNA is begging you to do.
Yeah.
Right? These things are supposed to happen. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm fine, you're probably one of those people that subconsciously continued to stick around other people and didn't allow yourself to go into that sort of isolated place. Like, it's very simple if you let it be. And it's very complicated if you try to fight it. If you try to say, again, I'm a loner, or I do just really like watching TV, like that kind of thing. It's not like we're asking you to completely change who you are as a human being, but those things that happened automatically in society that have been taken from you are what's driving you further into the hole. And at a certain point, we have to do something. And like, if you want to use the buddy system backwards and go help someone instead, that would probably work as well. Like, you sort of have those two avenues, right? You have like, there's
You're gonna
this
get all
thing,
the same benefits. It's
exactly.
just which order you kind of entered the tunnel from.
Yeah, it's like when we do a nutrition talk here. Like, afterwards, I'm very like reinvigorated to explore this stuff, because people, even though it might not necessarily be fair, people associate my knowledge on the topic with whether I do it or not. And they're like, yeah, but what do you do? And sometimes, depending on when it is,
Mostly chicken nuggets and barbecue sauce.
it's like sometimes I don't want to answer that question. But the funny thing is, when I am asked the question and it is like, oh, I want to know what you do, it's like, yeah, I'm going to start doing that thing again that I was doing before, like that sort of deal. So I think it's really, you've got a few different avenues here. You can just pick out the thing that's really bothering you and ask someone to help. That is an avenue that is there for you. You can pick an avenue and reverse a scenario like we just said, but you can also pick the most low-hanging fruit, because again, momentum and these ideas of dopamine and serotonin and getting yourself to really sort of feel like you're up to the challenge, whatever the next one is, like, you can go grab the easiest thing in the world. And that could literally be, sure, we doing that C2 bike piece today? Hunter, are we going to get lunch today? And can you please make me go somewhere that like,
Right.
like that sort of thing. Like, you can do it that way as well, because it will, again, like I said, grease the runway before. Like that's what it does. It gets you back into the swing of who, what your DNA is, what your biology is, how that all works. And then you're much more inclined to start making better decisions. But, again, whether it's taking a class, and this extends out, like we tell games level athletes to take, hey, why don't you chill the fuck out and take class for a week or something like that. Super helpful. Because it can remind you of these things, why you started doing it in the first place, like your, that group of training partners you had back in the day, like that sort of thing. Like it can sort of spark those feelings a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that coaching class, taking class, finding training partners, like hanging out with people, even if it's FaceTime, like that sort of thing.
Yeah,
like,
I think you can kind of think of all the concepts and ideas that we put out there as things that should be intertwined, and then kind of separate them. And I'm sure that some of you can think of either yourself at some point in your life, whether that's now or before, or having a friend who does have the nutrition, does have the sleep, does have the exercise, does go out and walk, like all of those kind of like the doctor's orders, so to speak, like sort of things dialed in, but they're not interconnected. They're the people, it's the person who says, I trained for 3 hours today. Like, wasn't that enough? And it's like, yeah, but you did it by yourself. You did it like, it was more like, I have to do this thing. You weren't training with friends. Like, it wasn't like, hey, you want to go grab lunch after, that sort of thing. Like all the pieces were there, but they weren't connected. And then I think to realize the other kind of 50% of the gains that you can make, it's tying that together with kind of the relationships and the reduction of stress and stuff like that, which again, all kind of intertwine, especially the kind of like the hormonal responses that we get from those interactions, even just as little as just getting the vibration in your pocket of like, oh, somebody has texted me, that sort of thing, like,
right,
is not to be ignored.
I feel like we just nailed our final thoughts. So
I did for sure.
The only thing I'd add to that is I really did find that during the beginning of quarantine, when I was stuck at home, that when I did invite people over and was able to give them a workout, I know they were looking for that. They're missing that in their life. They weren't able to go to the gym and do their thing. And a lot of times I didn't even work out with them. I just said, let me write you something. Come on over. You're new to the community. You're missing this huge part of your life that you just kind of started down this path. And now what? Shit, I did beginners 2 months ago. I was just starting to like CrossFit, and now your gym's closed. What do I do? So to me, I tried to reach out to these people and say, why don't you come over to my house and work out? And as much as it was cold down there, it was March, I didn't want to be in that situation. It wasn't the warm, nice gym. Being able to go out and help somebody made all the difference. Like on the days that I didn't even work out, I just went down there and said, all right, you're going to do some assault bike and you're going to do some medicine ball cleans in my garage. Like just the physical act of helping someone else and like seeing them like smile and sweat and being like, oh, it did feel good to come and do that. Like made all the difference for me. So like I would 100% prescribe to, if you're struggling and you can't put that lens back on you just yet, do something for somebody else and see where that takes you, because I really do think that's powerful. And I think it's the best like kick in the seat that you could potentially give yourself, is helping someone else, seeing some things that you might be going through in somebody else, and then being like, all right, I got to flip that mirror around and now look at myself to now get better.
Right. We used to end all of the Misfit Project episodes with "Don't talk about it, be about it." This is really one of those things where we're giving you homework as listeners. You go out there and use the buddy system, whether that's like Hunter just talked about, you got that friend that's, posts on Instagram that they're still going outside or whatever. They're your friend. You can say, can I go on a walk with you?
Join them.
Like you can join those people. You can go help others. You can get a group together. You probably had a bit more of your tribe, whether it was socially or work-wise or in the gym before. Like there are ways to recreate that, to continue to connect, to, go back to Sherb talking about maybe using technology as a positive. But this is one of those things that it's too powerful to just sit here for us and talk about it, and for us to not go execute on it in the same way, and for someone to listen to and go, yeah, that was great. And then it's, Queen's Gambit, like burrow into the corner and I'll see the world on Monday again, kind of a thing. So Yeah, don't talk about it, be about it. All right.
That's a great show.
That's a show?
The Queen's Gambit.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, it's a show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Thank you for listening, and thank you to our show sponsors. Proper Fuel. Head to properfuel.co and use the code word Misfit to save on your first order for your complete post-workout nutrition needs. PureSpectrumCBD.com. Use the code word Misfit, and SharpenTheAxeCo.com. Use the code word Unprepared, or use the code word Keala, Keala, to donate 10% of your order to the Keala Foundation. As always, I am at Misfit Coach on Instagram. Slide into those DMs. Let us know what you thought of the episode and what you'd like to hear next.